John, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you both have many things going on. You have lots of dealers depending on you and earnings calls and, a lot of people that are looking for your time and attention. So the fact that you were willing to give us some today means the world to me. I know it means the world to the people who are here in the room. We wish you could be here, and also the people on the live stream. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, everybody, I just want to make a check. Everybody can hear me clearly. Is that all? Give me a thumbs up. Great. So, Alex, I want to start with you. And we've had the opportunity to talk a little bit about the work that was done during the initial COVID lockdown, and we'll see what happens moving forward, to really take it into your own hands to begin to influence and lobby the government to see the essential need for dealers to be open and deemed essential businesses. What is it that spurred that on in you initially? Why did you even start down that road?
Well, listen, Paul, thanks for having me, and thanks for asking the question. It's a trip down memory lane in that I can vividly remember, like many of you, watching the news unfold in real time. And most of the evening news was talking about the harm happening to the hotel and travel industries. And I guess I don't have enough friends that run hotels or airlines, but I don't see them giving back to local communities at all like local dealers do. And so it bothered me how much the media was focusing on two industries that are important, but aren't nearly as important as the auto industry. And so that was the first thing that got me sleepless at night and pacing my office until I could figure out we've got to do something here to get our voices heard.
John, when things started to shut down, I know Pennsylvania had some unique challenges. Can you tell us a little bit about when you really realized that you were going to have to fire up your efforts in a way like never before?
Well, Paul, thanks for having us on. We did from day one. We got shut down on March 19th, and we sent a letter to the governor the next day because while one side of the business was open, the service side, the sales side was closed. And so we started right away with talking points on why that was difficult and didn't make sense, and started reaching out. Alex and I were talking before we went on here, just reminiscing about this, but we looked to almost hundreds of people that had influence over the governor and his administration to see the light here and understand the difficulties of shutting that down. And one of the things that really worked on our advantage is the states around us were open, although New York and New Jersey kind of open while we were still closed, and we thought that would help our argument. I think it did. Ultimately, that was the best argument we had was, look, it's not illegal to buy a car in Pennsylvania, or it's not illegal to buy a car, it's just illegal to buy a car in Pennsylvania, which didn't make too much sense. So, it just took a while to get the message out there, but we started pounding away on it the next day. And we talked to legislators, all kind of people, including people like Alex who did help. He gave me some really good information that we used to push through to, again, all these different points of influence into the administration, and ultimately we got there.
So tell me a little bit about how the two of you met, actually. I'm curious. How did the two of you meet, and how did you start working together on this advocacy avenue, especially over the last 6 months? Alex,
I'll tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had hired a lobbyist early into the pandemic to help me because I don't have friends in Washington, D.C., and so I hired a lobbyist who was well connected, and she was tremendous in helping us start to use a dealer petition that we started, and we got over 8,000 petitions in almost 72 hours from across the country. And we were lobbying at the federal level. And as we were starting to break through there, Melissa started talking to me about the various states that are already made executive orders to lock down sales. And so, we started looking at it, and she knew John and connected us. And I think one of the things what John was talking about is we have real-time data where I could see how many people in Philadelphia and the state of Pennsylvania were using cars.com to contact dealers in other states. because our traffic shortly after the pandemic was through the roof. We were seeing more volume through our platform than ever before. But in Pennsylvania, they were contacting all the other dealers out of state. So that was the data that I offered to help. Sorry to all the New York dealers in the room. I don't mean to deny you that opportunity, but I'm a free market guy, and I didn't like the fact that Pennsylvania dealers were being, asked to do things that weren't right.
So John, tell me about that first conversation with Alex. And I think that people like to know how relationships are formed and how things played out behind the scenes. So John, maybe you could tell me about how you leveraged that data to move your initiative forward.
I was just talking to Alex about that. I specifically remember a variety of different things that he was telling us that we were then funneling up to anyone who would listen. And one of the things I remember, and again, I'm not insulting anybody in New York, but the city was a hot spot. I mean, that was ground zero. And we knew people from Pennsylvania, as particularly, he gave me some data where people were going in to Brooklyn to buy cars during, April. And that was pretty telling because the main talking point we had was, don't chase people, an hour away, 2 hours away to go buy a car, particularly into a hot spot.
Sure, it's a lot less safe for starters.
You couldn't make a counter argument to say that was a good idea. You really couldn't. And even in the other states that weren't hot spots, why would you want anybody traveling? Most people travel within a 20-mile zone to buy their cars. They're not running to 2 hours away to really get a deal. They'll do their homework and stay within. They want to go to their local dealers. And we had people running into another thing that Alex was telling me. We could see Maryland and West Virginia were doing a hell of a lot better than almost anybody in the country because they were getting all this traffic from Pennsylvania. So it really helped explain what was going on. People weren't going to stop buying cars if they needed them. And people do need them. You have, everybody from first responders, and we had a lot of those calls coming in from consumers that were dealer customers, doctors, nurses, people that worked in food service, that needed to keep going. People that got their cars totaled. There was no other way around it. They couldn't rely on Uber or anything like that. They had to get a workable car. And so there were so many good stories like that.
This really highlights something that really is one of my core beliefs and why I started this Automotive State of the Union initiative, is because I believe that when dealers, when I say when dealers, I also mean industry partners, I also mean associations, I mean anyone who derives their business and their livelihood based on the success of the dealership network. So when dealers band together, I said no crisis can win, and that's now morphed to when market forces are pushing against the dealers, dealers need to push back, and that only is going to be effective when we do it together, which is one of the reasons I wanted to have both of you on, because I think it embodies this, it breaks apart the norm where, dealers are looking out for dealers, and the associations support the dealers, and the vendors are only looking out for themselves and to be better than the other vendors and industry partners. I think this is a model of what we need to adopt as an industry and say, look, it takes all of us, because everyone has a different skill set, ability, because of what their company or organization does. Alex had data. He had relevant data that then he could pass on to John, that John could use to leverage to not only advocate for his dealers, but let's face it, if people are going to a hotspot to buy a car because their government shut down car purchasing in their state, that's not good for anybody. That's not good for the New York dealers, it's not good for the Pennsylvania dealers, it's not good for the population. When some kid that just grew up a mile from the venue that I'm in right now, what can I do? I can get people together, right? That's probably my best skill set. That's how I ended up getting married, is because I convinced my wife that it was a good idea, right? But what can I do? I can get us together so we can talk about these things and have these conversations. And this example right here, I want more people to see this so that more people can understand. It takes that mindset where Alex has this moment and says, you know what, I'm really perturbed over the fact that like the dealer body who does so much for the community, invests so much back, isn't getting heard. He starts his initiative. He now has data to give to John, who can start his initiative that can get Pennsylvania to open dealers back up like they should have in the beginning. And all of this works together. And now for you, if you're seeing this, if you're hearing this, I want you to start thinking, what can I do? Because let's all face it, all of us right now, whether you're in Chicago, whether you're in Pennsylvania, whether you're in New York, everyone's talking about this sucker shutting down again, right? That's the conversation. So no one thinks that we're through. Everyone thinks, I don't know, we might be on, mile 12 of the marathon, right? I was hoping that we were on mile 22 of the marathon and just rounding the corner, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So I just wanted to give context for why I wanted these two on the call today. And now we're gonna pivot the conversation. So first, I wanna thank you, because I've never done that, but I really thank you for the example that you've given to us, because I want this to echo further and further and further, and may it come back to you tenfold as a result. And now after that rant, I wanna pivot this conversation just a little bit to talk about technology. And I know, Alex, technology is your wheelhouse, and John, I have no idea if technology is in your wheelhouse or not, so I'm gonna go out on a limb here, but without a doubt, you've had to become more comfortable with technology to serve your dealers better, and just because of technology, you were able to serve your dealers better. So I'm gonna start the question to Alex. Technology is of greater and greater importance, moving through not only the customer experience, but also through the efficiency of our operations and getting data back to dealers so they can make better decisions in a compressed environment, right? Things are really great right now. It's gonna compress again. I don't think anyone doesn't think that's going to happen. So how do you approach the mindset of technology and how technology can actually serve dealers? I know it's kind of a big question, but I'm curious on what your thought is, because you live in this world.
Well, look, I would tell you that if there's a byproduct of COVID that I feel guilty that has helped me, is that it's forcing everybody to think technology first. We survey shoppers in real time. The good news for our industry is that the majority of consumers are saying that COVID is forcing them to think about buying a new car or a late model used car, because the car is the only safe form of transportation, and it frankly is an extension of our homes. And so I think that's going to be a lasting implication long after a cure is found. I think the automobile has long been predicted to have, its demise, and I think now more than ever, it's such a critical, essential service for everyone to own. And I think what really has changed, though, is people's willingness to visit physical showrooms and or retail storefronts. And dealers historically spend a ton of money in their physical showroom, and I think that needs to shift now to their digital showroom. And through Dealer Inspire, we're launching record numbers of websites for dealers that give dealers far more control, and home delivery. We're using cars.com in ways that I never imagined. We had dealers reach out to us in mass during the pandemic that says, look, we know shoppers want us to bring cars to the home. I think we have close to over 8,000 dealers now advertising home delivery on cars.com, that they will bring the car to people's homes. And what's important about that is we see the dealers that are offering those progressive services and things like home delivery are getting 30% more engagement on their dealership than dealerships that aren't. And I think the lesson that we need to all remind ourselves is that you've got to meet the customer where they are. Not everybody's going to feel safe being in a physical venue, and so you've got to evolve your business and use technology first.
John, so without a doubt, right, Alex, and I like that you brought that up, like you hate that it seems like, it's benefiting you that people are leaning into technology, but you don't get to pick that, right? You just need to make sure that you're doing the best you can to serve the dealers that way. And the information that you shared with us and the information that you do share from time to time, because I pay attention to it, I think it does serve the dealer mindset. When you could say 8,000 dealers are advertising at home delivery on cars.com, right? That's not all the dealers that are doing it. That's just the ones that are doing it on cars.com. And what that should tell and trigger in everybody else's mind is that it's relevant. And if you're not thinking about it, you should be thinking about it. If you're not moving on it, you should be taking a step in that direction. So I think that when you have an open-handed approach to technology, sure, if you're smart and it's your business, you're going to leverage every opportunity possible to take that and turn it into a valuable offering. No one has to sign up for your services. They do because they provide value. And so, John, can you, maybe dovetailing off that a little bit, what are you seeing from, you're in touch with lots and lots of dealers, how do you see the transition going to a more technologically based system of selling a car, servicing a car, delivering a car? What are you seeing?
Well, it's a great question, and I think one of the positives, and you look for positives that come out of a situation like this, are many states require the paperwork to be done with wet signatures, meaning you need to be in front of the people to do it. And right now there's a big push around the country to try and get to the point where the titles and the state paperwork can be done in a virtual situation. And we're working on that right now. In fact, Maryland just changed their law, and all the states have to follow regulations set in the federal odometer law, disclosure law. And states are now figuring out how to do this. Our state, we've had multiple conversations with our DOT, and they are actually completing a study at the end of this month on how that may happen. So it is really an opportune time to see how we can get somebody to do a completely virtual transaction, because a lot of people are doing it, but they aren't necessarily doing it and following all the rules down to the nth degree. So not a lot of states really allow for that, but that's changing rapidly. So it's a real positive development, I think, that's come out of this.
What do you think has been the most difficult piece of the technological or the technology-driven process to adopt for dealers? Like, what are you hearing the most groaning about?
Well, really, I'll tell you what, I think dealers are, and Alex probably agrees with this, they still are compared to, say, some other disruptors, that they're not as capable to do things online, and they certainly are. They've all adapted for years now really well. So they can do anything that people in the national scene that say they can do it only, we can all do it. All of our dealers can do it, and they're very skilled at giving the customer what they want.
I agree with that. It's easy to get shots taken at you, right? Like, so a lot of people have been really, the way I've been kind of verbalizing it and putting it in writing is that these organizations that have survived and thrived coming out of everything from the Great Depression to material shortages, all the way up through cash for clunkers and scandals and fires and floods and hurricanes, right? The same people that have done that and have really carried a large portion of the American economy on their back. They're now being treated and positioned like an occupying enemy. And I don't think that that's fair, and I don't think it's right. And I also believe in the spirit that got them this far is the same spirit that will figure this one out. The only problem is they were just already in a really big ship. So it's hard. You have to deconstruct the ship. You have to figure out what parts make the faster, more nimble ship. So you don't get to, disruption usually comes from outside the industry, because it's very tough to disrupt yourself and see things in a different way. So I'm a believer in what you just said. I know Alex is too, because he was given 2 thumbs up all the way through, is that I've never seen a group of retailers more obsessed about how to make their businesses serve the customer more. And I haven't seen another industry that has as many challenges. Brian Benstock was just talking about all of the different areas and things that dealers have to deal with in many areas, right from legal areas to supplier. It's not like a restaurant where you cook a meal and then they go home. So I think that the people watching this, the people in this room echo that sentiment, that they're up for the task and they will figure it out. Alex, I want to go ahead.
I just add, I just build on what John said. Not only will they be able to match these national offerings, they can improve upon them. We now have dealers that are advertising same-day home delivery, where some of the national players if you order a car, it could be 7 to 10 days before you'll see it. Local dealers can use our national platform and advertise same day home delivery and deliver on that, which is a better consumer experience. So local matters in a big way. And every dealer I know, to your point, Paul, don't challenge them. They'll out innovate you, and they will find a way.
That's right. I didn't know about the same day delivery, but it makes a lot of sense. It's the same reason that Walmart is able to gain ground on the Amazon play, because Walmart has inventory everywhere, right? They have a physical location everywhere. So now the fact that you can get same day delivery, and let's face it, just about every story I've heard about like a Carvana transaction, there have been some issues, right? And like, look, they're cars, so we have issues. I'm not saying that like Carvana's cars are better or worse. But what I am saying is that people feel comfortable when there's somebody that can address their issue right then and do the work. Not like, oh, go take it somewhere and then we'll reimburse you, but somebody that can literally show up and take the keys and say, here's something else to drive in the meantime. And I'm gonna take, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I'm gonna take care of this for you and hand it back to you. I didn't know about the same day thing, but again, that's something that I think more people need to pay attention to. And like, look, being able to offer same day delivery, there is a cascade of other things that need to be in place for a dealer to be able to execute on that. But the fact that through technology and through that entrepreneurial mindset, like you said, like sometimes when you order a car online, it's 2, 3, 4 weeks away. And so I think that's an amazing change. Let me ask you this, John. So you are in, since we're kind of on the topic of disruptors and Carvana, so you're in a market that definitely has Carvana. I'm standing in Philadelphia right now. There's a vending machine, a few miles away from me. What are you hearing as far as dealers kind of addressing this new threat or considering these new threats to the traditional dealer model?
Well, let's face it. Most of the people who do what the companies you're talking about, they're dealers. They may say they're not, but they're used car dealers. So, they can say don't go to a dealer, but in fact they have dealer licenses and that's what they're doing. They're trying to do it with a slightly different twist, but our guys can do anything they can do, absolutely. And, they're maybe not spending as much on marketing, but they're a sustainable model, which, I think some of these disruptors, eventually you have to make money. So the franchise, if you look at the franchise system that we represent, China's making a move to come into this country, and they're doing it through the franchise system. You look around the world, everything but Tesla is really going toward the franchise system. It works, and that's why everyone's going there. If you'd listen to and read articles, you'll think things are moving away from that. That could be nothing but further from the truth. The franchise system is alive and well and growing.
Yeah, I would definitely, that's a very valid point as well, because it's able to react it almost seems able to react in a faster way, in a micro sense, locally speaking. Alex, your whole career, you've worked within the franchise system, and you've kind of navigated all the nuances of that. What's your perspective on the strength of the franchise system, and why do you think it still does work?
Well, I just think this is the second largest transaction in most people's life, and to have someone who's there for you is going to matter. And we always overlook the service side of the business, but there's a role for a local operator. I know I bought my wife a car over COVID, same day delivery. They brought the car; it was camera ready right in my driveway, and so I'm just impressed with the resiliency of local operators and being able to meet customers where they are. And that to me shows the entrepreneurialism of our model. Whether there's laws in place or not, it's certainly, it's important to me that they remain in place, but I still believe in the entrepreneurialism as being our greatest asset.
All right, gentlemen, our time is coming to a close. I'm going to begin everybody this opportunity, and I want to give you the same opportunity. So this is what I'm calling the last word. You have an audience of dealers and industry partners who are watching online, who are watching here in person, and you have an opportunity to say something to them, almost as if you were standing in front of them. If you are standing in front of that dealer, that industry partner who is looking, saying, what should I pay attention to? What should I be thinking about? How do I take my next steps forward? what are you going to say to them? John, I'll do you first, and then we'll close with Alex.
Well, I think it's a great question, and I'd stick with the theme of this whole discussion, which is, hey, if we have problems, let's stick together, because I'll never forget that during this, the whole first part of this, I had the largest dealer in the state call me about 2 or 3 weeks into this, and what he said to me was, what can I do to help? He wasn't calling to, complain. He wasn't gonna say, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. It was stick together, what can we do collectively, because that's what associations and groups do. They figure out a good way. One of the things we did in this too is come up with talking points, and we over and over again told the dealers, stick to the script on this thing, because you can get off script pretty fast. So my view would be, do what we're doing now, stick together with us. If there's another problem in a different direction, we'll figure it out, but we need to stick together.
Great. Alex, what is your last word?
Yeah, well, listen, first of all, I would say it doesn't have to be the last word. My email is alex@cars.com. You can reach out to me directly, and I just want to ask, how can I help you? I think, what I've learned about this business is that, to John's point, we've got to continue to work together. And I know cars.com is a great solution to the pandemic, but between Dealer Inspire, Dealer Rater, and our new business Fuel, I know there's things that we can do to help dealerships move forward digitally and keep their operating costs low. And so we're here to help you. And if you need anything from me, just reach out to Alex at Cars, and I'm happy to continue the conversation. And Paul, I want to thank you for your leadership in bringing us all together, both virtually and physically. It doesn't surprise me that you're one of the first people to step forward and bring people together. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. I also, this wasn't planned, but I want to remind people and give you, Alex, and your team a special thank you, because Cars is the reason we were able to stream this in the way we could stream it. They really stepped up to the plate. You can't see it. We have camera here, camera there. We needed lighting. We needed complicated equipment to make sure we could do all this. So Cars is the team that sponsored that and made sure that we could do that in a good and in a quality way. So Alex, thanks again for the partnership. John, thank you so much. And gentlemen, I will be talking to both of you soon, I am certain, and keep pushing forward, and thank you.